Base camp in the IPL in the league phase. 70 games and we are into match 35. Stop the press. A captain's won the toss and he's going to bat first. That captain is Hardik Pandya, who returns for the Gujarat Titans in an afternoon fixture against a KKR side that started this tournament so well on the opening night, but suddenly find themselves having lost 3 on the trot. It's all to play for, the D.Y. Patil Stadium. That's where our attention lies on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by IQ 9 5G. It's a shame that some of these IPL sides aren't living up to their full overseas contingent, so we thought we'd make up for it. Dan Vettori takes the spot next to me. It's good afternoon. The flight from Auckland has landed on time. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm staying awake. See how long I can do it for.
Yeah. And speaking of staying awake, Chris Lynn has just about managed. He's living the Vettori experience of the last year or so. Linny, afternoon. This is a much better fixture. The afternoon game is what you look forward to while you're in Brisbane, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Looking forward to hopefully a close game tonight, or a couple of games.
We saw quite the game in even last night. I wonder, before I even get to Gujarat and Kolkata, if I could just pick your brains on your reactions to what we saw towards the end of the evening. Not often that the assistant coach is asked to walk onto the field to argue with umpires, but now that you've had a night to think about it, where do you stand on what happened last night with the Capitals and the nonsense that happened in the last over?
I think that's a fair description, the nonsense. It looked like Pravin Amre was almost forced to go out there by the players.
Yes.
There's obviously a discussion in the background by support staff, and at no stage does support staff want to step on the field. So it was surprising to see that, but it felt like it was pressure from the players. Yeah.
Would you rather have seen the captain walk out? Because we have seen that before, haven't we?
Well, I think you can understand players being emotional. I think you can deal with that, but support staff needs to remain pragmatic and neutral, and they need to stay off that field.
Fair enough, Chris Lynn, even if we all accept that the umpire made a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just got to keep it nice and simple. No one's bigger than the game, right? So, right or wrong, whatever the decision's made, as I said, no one's bigger than the game. You got to abide by the rules. It's not a great look. At the end of the day, we are, yes, we are athletes, but we're entertainers. So we've got to be good role models for young kids, who are wanting to play cricket. And obviously, it wasn't a great look for the game last night.
Yeah, it's something a young captain like Rishabh Pant will, I guess, learn. Maybe the next morning he would have thought of his actions the previous night, and he will have to somewhat pay the consequences. 100% of the match fee for him, 50% for Shardul Thakur. Pravin Amre will stay off the field for a game longer because he's been banned for a match. So the Capitals have to still figure out their issues off the field for their next one. Anyway, let's focus on the Knight Riders, shall we? This is a team that started so well and all of a sudden find themselves not necessarily the most desired part of the points table, because suddenly more and more teams are cranking up 8 and 10 points. And as we look at it, you'll know that KKR, having started so well, having looked the part and even stronger once Pat Cummins was available, suddenly just do not look like that team anymore. There are also 3 changes that Shreyas Iyer is forced to make. He says there are niggles in that team. Sam Billings, we know, had a bad stomach, so due to illness, missed out. They had to make a number of changes there. Aaron Finch came in for Rahane and Sheldon Jackson took the gloves in Billings' absence. But it looks like Sam Billings is back. 6 points is where KKR stand at. That's a crowded spot with the Delhi Capitals, the Punjab Kings. Win today will at least get them to 8, but still not enough to get into the top 4. Let's look at that team, shall we? For KKR, we just want to try and see exactly who's out. So looks like Sunil Narine will open, which means Aaron Finch has to make way even after getting a 50 in the last game. Tim Southee, Pat Cummins seems a straight swap, and Sheldon Jackson would go out and give Rinku Singh a slot. Now, sign of, I guess, a team that wants to make some changes. Sunil Narayan's back at the top of the order, Dan, after Aaron Finch put in a shift in the last game.
I think that Shreyas Iyer mentioned injuries, so I think Paddy Cummins probably in particular getting through a reasonably high workload from the Pakistan Test Tour and then coming over here, so that could be a possibility. And Tim Southee did a pretty good job at the start of the tournament, so I think it's an easy replacement to rest someone. The Finch one's interesting. He played pretty well in the last game, but maybe they just wanted that middle order option and Billings, and then as you said, shove Sunil Narine back up the top of the order, and maybe he's worried about Finch running him out as well. So they split him up.
Yeah. Who knows more about Sunil Narine, the opener, than Chris Lynn? They seem to have gone that way. I mean, 150th game was somewhat inauspicious for Narine, as he was run out without a ball being faced, Chris. But looks like that's what KKR want to do, send him up the order. I can't believe 3 people would have had a niggle. So I'm assuming the Finch, Narine, Sam Billings swap is tactical.
Yeah, I think so. And like with Narine, you got to look at your matchups. Generally he doesn't open when he's playing someone or teams that bowl, good gas, so, 140 plus, speed. So for me, it's probably all about the matchups, and they might look to bowl spin early as well, which he obviously dominates. Is much more comfortable against. So again, just trying to tap into Baz's brain, Brendan McCullum's brain. He's always taking the aggressive option. So yeah, look, they are chasing another win, but if the best way for Sonny Alderaan to score runs is opening, then go for it. And he also sets a nice tone and platform for the guys, and obviously take out the run out. Worked under Dan for a couple of years now, and he absolutely hates run outs. So I can only imagine what he's thinking when someone gets run out. Well, especially someone like Sonny Alderaan, who basically every ball's a free hit anyway.
Yeah, anyone who likes runouts?
No, but I think in those cases it's one run. Sometimes everyone gets so excited about getting a quick single. Like Finchy and probably Sonny Alderaan haven't batted together before, and that's not Sonny Alderaa's game. Whereas it is Aaron Finch's game to get going, push hard, knowing your partner. I don't think that's the reason why Aaron Finch's been dropped, but there is a combination, like Lenny says, that breeds something special, and maybe they think they can get it more with Narine at the top of the order.
No, I like that you mentioned that. We spoke about this for Virat Kohli a couple of times. He's been run out twice this season, and you tend to think, what's the risk and reward, right? You just let that single down, and you could see a different Virat Kohli.
Absolutely, and what it brings is a new batsman who's under pressure, as opposed to not taking that single, and you can hit the next ball for six. So I never quite understand why there is a need for that single, because boundaries and sixes win T20 games.
All right. Now, Sunil Narine would have probably been ready to pad up once he saw that Hardik Pandya is the first captain to walk out to talk to Danny Morrison. But to his surprise, the captain winning the toss is going to bat first. Now, Chris Lynn, this is the only ground, the D.Y. Patil Stadium, which has seen a significantly higher percentage of teams batting first and winning. But does this decision surprise you in any way still?
No, not at all. And having been a part of the Saturday afternoon fixture, now and again, you do tend to bat first in the daylight. Obviously, there's no dew involved in the match, so I think batting first is a great option. And I think it's an aggressive move as well, as we touched on. A lot of teams have won the toss and bowled first, and that's the safe play. But I think Gujarat, obviously they're on top of the table for a reason. And I think them batting first is showing great signs, and they're looking at throw that first punch with the bat in hand this time.
Does it still surprise you, or are you happy with that?
No, I think the other part of it is the heat, and being involved in numerous afternoon games in Mumbai, and when you field first and your batters run off the field and they're drenched and they're inevitably chasing 200, teams are drained after that fielding. And you see Mumbai have done it so many times in the past where they've batted first, put teams under pressure, and then they're fresh to go out there. And I think that'll be one of the reasons that this heat will play a huge part in the way the game unfolds.
How much of it is perhaps what the Titans see themselves as and what their strengths are? If you look at that team, it is certainly strengthened with Hardik Pandya's return. So he's had a nice week off, as he himself admits, just precautionary, the absence against the Chennai Super Kings. But those look like 2 points that were never going to go their way until Rashid Khan and eventually David Miller had other plans against Chris Jordan and the Super Kings. But that's the only change. But Vijay Shankar makes way. So it wasn't the double swap that they made to accommodate the bowling of Pandya, which is bring in Alzari Joseph. Joseph keeps his spot. That gives them a number of options. There are 5 outright options on the right, and you have Tewatia and Hardik Pandya. So that's 7 bowling options in that side. Ridhiman Saha keeps his place. Matthew Wade sitting out. Now, let's just talk about whether this team is set up differently now if they want to bat first. This is clearly a team that admits, as David Miller does, that they've been lucky to win a few.
And I think it means Hardik Pandya probably won't bowl either. I think they'll continue on with that. Probably rest for him. They realise how important he is as a captain and a batsman, and they'll give themselves that balance with 5 out-and-out bowlers, and they'll look at Tewatia as well as someone to complement it. So I think Joseph comes in just to strengthen up that bowling lineup because they're worried about Hardik's injury.
Yeah, and if you are going to back your bowling more often than not, then is this the way you set up, Chris? I mean, what if this is the way Gujarat go about it going forward? Bat first, and even if they get a below par score for some reason, they've got the bowling to defend it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, they're sitting at the top of the table for a reason. So they've got that luxury, of tinkering with a player or two here or there, or resting a player, as we saw with Hardik. But you look throughout that whole lineup and, there's been so many match winners, proven match winners throughout the tournament so far. So, they've got a great balance, but it gives themselves options as well. So it looks a hell of a team, but not just a hell of a team, but a team that's in form and confident. And going by their social media, they look like they're having fun off the field and look like they've gelled together as a new franchise really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, if you showed that team to someone and you didn't tell them where they are on the points table, would you actually say that this looks a great T20 team? It's a good question to perhaps start off with. They've let go of Vijay Shankar, and therefore a rookie will have to bat at 3 unless Hardik Pandya goes from 4 to 3. And I look at that team now, Dan, and you think, gee, they were top of the table for the longest time. Can they maintain that, though? Does this team look the kind of team that could stay where they are?
I'm more interested in their social media profile. That's how we're going to judge teams now. We'll just go skim through their accounts and see who's doing well. I do like this balance. I think it puts an onus on batsmen to do well. And there's so many times in a selection meeting where you try to fluff around the 6th or 7th batter and you go with a player who offers you a little bit of everything. This feels like it's, right, we trust our batters to do this and we trust our bowlers to do this. And you guys go out there and do it. You know you have to bowl your 4 overs. And this top 5 really has to get the job done with the bat. There's a couple of complementary guys who can bat down the end. Obviously, Rashid Khan. Azari Joseph's not the worst batter either. So I think they'll take that into account, that they've got enough down that bottom order to feel like they're confident. But in the end, it puts onus on batters to do their job and bowlers to do their job.
All right, fair enough. Matchups for today, exciting ones actually. Because Andre Russell at the back of a first ball duck against R. Ashwin is up against Rashid Khan. Rashid Khan, who is now had the privilege of having led in the IPL too. Strike rate of 160 for Dre Russ against Rashid Khan. And we're seeing a different Rashid Khan in the Gujarat Titans colours. We're still getting used to him away from the Sunrisers. Not the wicket-taking force that he once was, but this has turned out to be quite the season for him. Andre Russell kept late in the last game, Chris. And this is a conversation we just continue having, where does Russell bat? I mean, I wonder if Andre Russell, the bowler now being used more, is going to change that up. They're suddenly realizing that this bowling lineup needs more from Andre Russell. We've been talking about Cummins and Umesh Yadav not being effective at the death. Does Russell, the bowler, need to play a bigger part today?
Oh, look, I think so. And I think, obviously, we say it all the time, when Andre Russell's bowling well, his batting comes, tenfold. So, for me, as you said, he missed out the last game. He's a player that wants to be involved, wants to be in the headlines, wants to be, that man of the match performer. So, with him missing out, he's a step closer to getting another man of the match. But looking at those stats against Rashid Khan, obviously they're not ideal for Andre, but it's not Andre's job to take down Rashid Khan. It's a previous batter, Shreyas Iyer and co. To get the job done there. And see Rashid off, and then Russell can come in and blast the boundaries towards the back end. But for me, he has to be bowling. It just, when he feels more in the game, then his batting comes so much further.
We've been having this recurring conversation about KKR's bowling for the last 3 games, and their death bowling in particular. Now, they don't have Pat Cummins today. Tim Southee comes in. Tim Southee's put in a decent shift for them. But we tend to ask the question of this team, which has Umesh Yadav, Dan, who's had his troubles bowling at the death. Pat Cummins returns while he had that terrific game with the bat. 49 from his 4 against Mumbai, 51 from his 4 against Delhi, and another 40 and 50 in another 7 overs after that. They don't quite have a death bowling specialist now, do they? They brought in Tim Southee. There's Narayan, there's Varun Chakravarti, there's Umesh Yadav. Tim Southee, what is he at?
Well, Tim Southee is that. It's a role that he performs for New Zealand. 2 at the top, and he bowls 2 at the back end. So he can go to his Yorker more often than probably those other bowlers we talk about. Umesh Yadav is a power play, early, middle stages specialist. I think you've seen the best of him when he does that, and he should stay as far away from the death as possible because doesn't suit him. And I think Pat Cummins probably has different roles when he plays for Australia, and he's asked to do a slightly different role when he comes into KKR. And it's probably also a fact that there's still an element of learning around bowling in IPL games for him. But I think Southee knows exactly what he's going to do. He's going to bowl Yorkers. He's going to go to his slow ball, and probably that's what KKR wants, someone they can rely on at the death. You
see him as someone who's evolved as a T20 bowler, Tim Southee?
Absolutely, and you can see it from his record. I think his record is fantastic. I think it helped that he's captained himself a lot. Not that he's put himself in favourable positions, like some captains, but he's bowled tough overs. And the first over is not the toughest, but the back end of a power play and then death are incredibly tough overs, and he's been successful in that through a simple process. The pace is not there anymore, but he swings it up front and then executes at the death.
What will it take to lift this KKR side, Chris? Because it's the side that'll be telling themselves, yeah, we've had good days. We're great on our good days. Suddenly we're losing more than they're winning. I mean, an area of concern we pointed out is death bowling. But does that get solved in any way other than change of personnel? I mean, they've made other changes too today.
Yeah, I think obviously death bowling throughout the tournament, in my opinion, has struggled. It's probably, how to KKR turn around. I think you've got to identify the fact that they need early runs. Most games have been 2 or 3 down in the power play. So for me, they've got to get off to a good start. And obviously the onus is on the batters up top and, set that platform, set the momentum, set the tone for the game. We're not. They might be trying to go for 60 off the power play, whereas they could just pull it back a little bit and be 9 for 40 and give themselves that platform for someone like Andre Russell, as we talk about, give him the option to go in at the 10th over, not necessarily always the 16th or 17th when he goes out there. So I think they've just got to give themselves that little bit more time at the crease, and as I said, give themselves the option and that flexibility to do so.
Is that Narayan wicket? We talk about early runs. We'll just bring up KKR's numbers with bat in the power play, and they actually aren't great. So that illustrates the point that they've struggled. Ajinkya Rahane took his time, didn't quite have the impact that they would have liked for him to have in the early parts of the season. They've tried Aaron Finch there. Sunil Narayan's been given a game too. But is Narayan still a free wicket? I wonder in this KKR team, Chris, the one you played in, perhaps stronger team, greater batting depth. You think today there's no Pat Cummins who adds plenty with the bat? There is a concern around Venkatesh Iyer's form, and that's putting it lightly, because there are questions on whether he is the player that he was in the second half of last season. They brought in Rinku Singh as well. So is Narayan still a free wicket at the top?
Yeah, in my eyes, yes. I suppose the biggest key is, and we talk about it all the time, is communication. Venkatesh Iyer played with the Freedom last year, and he dominated. But obviously, the second year, I don't think I could name a player that's dominated, his second year of his career. So obviously, people watch footage and whatnot, and same for Narayan as well. So I think the matchups are really key for Kolkata. As I said earlier, spin's a huge factor against Narayan. Which he dominates, but the guy at the other end's got to play his role as well. And I think, just going back to the Finch run out the other day, that's a sign of panic. And obviously, I can't imagine Sonny's the bloke that desperately backs up at the other end to get down, on strike. So for me, it's all about communication, and that's the vital part. So it just seems to me that, everyone's got to be on the same page. There's no doubt about that, but it's quite hard to access Sonny on the Ryans or tell his body language, because it gives you absolutely nothing. So in my eyes, you've just got to try and literally wrap your arms around him and just try and read his mind as best you can. And as I said, how do you do that? And I believe that's communication. But also get to know him off field as well. Pick his brain. If you're going to bat with him, you try and know the bloke, away from the game.
There are a couple of retentions that are under some serious pressure, Dan. Venkatesh Iyer is one of them. Varun Chakravarti is another. But Venki Iyer, Chris points out, we've heard this term second season syndrome, second season blues, whatever you want to call him. He plays a different role for India in the middle order. I wonder if you'd be tempted to just move him out of that top order. It's not been kind to him this season.
No, I think we've probably had this discussion before about the last game you play in the IPL is the one that people remember, and sometimes that leads to retentions. And so I think, probably if teams had a chance again to look at those retentions, they probably would. But that's unfair, because I think you make a judgment at the time, and teams put a lot of effort into it. But maybe that is a change that could be required to move him into that role. But I think if him and Narayan can form a partnership and get some momentum going, then there's something there. And I think, to Linny's point, the way that KKR used Narayan is that they have an expectation they could get out first ball, but they also know he could be 40 off 20. And I think they can deal with either side of that because they've dealt with it so many times.
I thought that experiment was almost tried, and it had its success, but it also saw its failures, and therefore it was shelved. And one of those reasons, Chris, when we used to talk about why Narayan should bat up or not, was looking at, like you say, the matchups. Now, you got Mohammad Shami and Lockie Ferguson. There was this belief that we had, when you have guys that crack it up 140 plus, can get it here to Narayan, he's not going to be as effective. So is that matchup in play today?
Yeah, look, it's going to be a tough one tonight. But in saying that, as Dan said, he could be 40 off 20 and hit 3 sixes over third man, or flick him off his legs over fine legs. So obviously it's not suited to him. But also he gets named, batting 1 or 2 every game. but we've seen him float throughout the innings. So don't be surprised if he is batting 5 or 6 tonight. Depending, who's bowling, he might come in outside the power play when the slower bowlers are on. So keep that in mind, and obviously Baz and the coaching staff will obviously communicate that, and there's going to be a method to their madness, as we know, and it always makes for good viewing when Sonny's out batting as well. Whether he's backing away, swinging, he's just trying to belt every ball, which I absolutely love.
Given we spent 15 minutes on Narayan the opener, we're sure he's not going to open now. So probably have Sam Billings open, maybe Nitish Rana will come up. God knows what they'll do, but I'm quite certain it's not going to happen. But just makes me think, you've mentioned this a number of times when we were doing our post-auction coverage, Dan, that it's a different IPL this year. So what about trying things that might have worked and then failed in previous IPLs, but retrying them now? And maybe they'll be successful, like Narayan at the top, even though it may have had its time or run its course in previous editions.
I think it's worthwhile. I think it's worthwhile investigating everything that's worked in the past. And look, I think Chris knows this better than me, but KKR put a lot of time and effort into their analysis. They spend a lot of time on the research. So they will come to this decision through some clarity around the analytics of it all. So they see this as a good decision if he does open. So let's give ourselves a chance to pull back on that. But look, I think you're right. I think there's times when Narayan was successful 2 years ago, and I think as a batsman he has developed and matured, and there's no reason why he can't have that little mini renaissance again.
Okay, Shubman Gill and Ridhiman Saha out in the middle. So question is, who's going to bat 3? Is it going to be a rookie in Abhinav Manohar, who took that spot up last game? Vijay Shankar, of course, was in that last game, but we have seen Abhinav Manohar come up the orders, is my point. Or will it be Hardik Pandya bat a position higher, Chris, from what we've seen? Pandya is an informed batter. Would he come at 3? Would you throw a spanner in the wheel and send a pinch hitter up?
Well, generally, whatever I say, they do the opposite. So I've actually got no idea. I'm going to say Hardik I think Hardik's going to stay at 4. He's trying to own that position, and I love the fact that he's been accountable for that as well. We've seen that look in his eye when he's walking out to bat. He used to be real matey with the opposition, tried to be that sort of too cool character. Now he's got the C next to his name. He's really tried to own that and just own the couple of meters around him at the crease, which it's great to see, because when he's on fire, I've never seen a bloke of his build hit the ball so hard, and there's not too many guys that strike the ball harder than what he does for his size and his weight.
Yeah, he's gone on a bit, Chris Lynn, but he's not given me an answer on who's going to bat at number 3. So that's up to you now.
I told you he's going to bat 4.
Yeah, right, but you didn't tell me who's going to bat 3. I'm wondering.
Well, I don't know. It could be someone down the order as well. They might throw someone up there.
Chris, what do I say? It's not Lockie Ferguson. It's not Shammy.
Carry on.
The other night.
I think it all depended on timing. I think if it's outside the 6 overs, then Hardik Pandya will bat 3. Otherwise, they could go to anyone. But I hopefully see Hardik as early as possible.
Okay, afternoon game, Chris, DY Patil Stadium. We've seen both sides of it. We've seen high scoring games. We've also seen a couple of low scores get competitive. What are we looking at? First inning score?
I'm going to sit on the fence and go around a 180. Obviously, they're in form. They're going to keep that momentum going. But I think whatever they score, they're going to back to defend. They've been awesome with the ball, and they've got express pace. And we've seen the ball swing at night time. Let's see what it does, during the day.
Dan?
Well, they must have read the wicket that it's going to deteriorate a little bit, because they felt like batting first was the right option. So I think 160, 170 could be a good score based purely on the toss.
All right, fair enough. Dan Vettori, Chris Lynn, more from you at halftime on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket Info T20 Timeout, powered by iQOO 95G.